It amazes me how much the masters have given on psychology and all these separate selves, and the whole avatar teaching is just so incredible compared to what was given before. And it was just such a relief for me, for myself, because when I started as a messenger, I came from the Summit Lighthouse, and they had a certain idolatrous view of the messenger as, more or less a perfect human being. And so I started myself, and there was, of course, some people from the summit that, supported me. And I felt a certain pressure to live up to this outer image. And it was a tension in me because, first of all, I knew nobody could live up to it. But I also sensed that I didn't want to live up to it. But for years, I wasn't strong enough to say, I don't want to live up to that kind of an image. I don't want to be that kind of a messenger or a spiritual teacher. And part of it was that I was sort of divided, because I felt, I had tremendous admiration and respect for Elizabeth as a messenger. I think she did an amazing job. And if she hadn't retired, I wouldn't even have thought about becoming a messenger. So I didn't want to be disloyal to her by saying she was wrong in the way she was doing it. But for years, I couldn't see how to resolve this, saying I want to do it differently without saying that she was wrong. And it took me a while before I realized, but that's not the only option. She did it her way. And that was her way. And it was perfectly okay for her and for the Summit Lighthouse as an organization, because it was, as masters have said, the last organization in the Piscean age. But it was equally perfectly okay for me to say, I don't want to do it that way. I am not that kind of a person. And we're no longer in the Piscean dispensation. This is the Aquarian age. And if I want something, and I don't know that I even want something anymore, but I came to a point where I realized I don't want people to idolize me. I want them to look at me as an example and say, if this guy Kim could do it, make his ascension, then I have a chance too. I'd much rather have people say that than idolize me. Because I can see how this is actually the problem, the basic problem with spiritual teachers. If you look back through the ages, I know I'm still going way off a tangent, but it's like this. In order to get people to listen to you as a spiritual teacher, you must first catch their attention. And how do you catch their attention? You have to have some kind of authority. You look back throughout the ages, and people, you look at Jesus, right? Take this idolatrous image of Jesus we have been given today by Christianity. He was always wearing this perfectly clean tunic, and his sandals were never dusty, and his hair was always perfect. And he probably always smelled like roses if you look at these images of him. But what was the reality? He walked around on these dusty roads in 40 degrees Celsius weather. Of course, he was smelling as bad as everybody else, And he was in a human body. What do you expect? But so what I'm trying to say is, why were there many people who met Jesus 2,000 years ago and either rejected him or ignored him? Because he had no specific authority. The authority that he has been given by Christianity wasn't there at the time. So it just shows you that in order to get people to listen to you, at least in the Piscean dispensation, you had to claim to have some kind of authority. And that automatically creates a distance between you and the people who follow you. It was clear with Elizabeth. She was up there. She had been trained for 2 million years to become a messenger at this particular age. She was so special. And nobody could do what she did. That was Pisces. This is Aquarius. I don't want to play to that. I don't want to claim authority to get people to listen to me, because I saw in the summit what happened. I saw in the summit what happened. So if you set yourself up and say, I'm so special, I'm up here, and none of you can do what I do, so you just need to follow me, and then you'll make it. If you do that, you're creating this gap, and people can't overcome the gap, and they end up resenting you for it, which is what they did in the summit. When she got ill, so many people got angry at her because they felt she hadn't kept her promise. And, she even herself said one time, I remember she said that if you idolize a person, you have to tear down the idol before you can manifest your Christhood. Because if you're saying this person has something I can't have, you're denying your own Christhood. So we had to tear down the idol before you have a chance of manifesting Christhood. And that's why I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in that position. I'm a human being like everybody else. I have started out life like all of you have started out life. I have walked the spiritual path that all of you can walk. It doesn't mean you all become messengers, but you find what is in your divine plan, what is your specific contribution you can make, and you can resolve your psychology. So you can stand there in front of that gate and look back at Earth and say, nothing pulls me back there. I'm ready to go, and leave the Earth behind permanently. And this was what I realized back then. It has to be a voluntary decision. Nobody's going to force you to go into the ascended realm. You cannot be forced to ascend. And you can't force yourself to ascend. You can't come there with this mindset that I've been on spiritual path for so many years, I've given all these decrees, Survivor's Bay has to let me in. You just have to let me in, Survivor's Bay. Look at all the things that I've done. He's just going to say, I'm sorry, you haven't understood what the ascension is about. You have to go back until you understand. I don't even think he's going to say, I'm sorry. He's just going to say, step back, see what you haven't seen, and figure it out. So anyway, that was just, I felt like sharing that, because I think it is very important that we all realize we all have the same potential to transcend ourselves, because that is the only requirement on a spiritual path, that we're willing to transcend ourselves. And we all have to start wherever we are at, and none of us were, any more special than anybody else. There were not 3 wise men that showed up when I was born in that maternity clinic in Denmark. So I don't have anything you don't have. And it's important for you to realize that, because otherwise you just do the same thing that they did in the summit, that in the Yaya movement, that in the theosophy, that the followers of Indian gurus have done for thousands of years. Put the guru up on a pedestal. And the guru can't help you that way. He might make you feel good for a time, but it's not going to change your consciousness. And if you don't change your consciousness, it's this, look at how people behave on Earth. Do you really imagine, like the Christians? I met Christians, fundamentalist Christians, who think, if I declare Jesus to be my Lord and Savior, I'm guaranteed to go to heaven. But they don't stop to think, do the people I see around me, can we have that kind of people in heaven that are behaving like this? So what does it really take to go into heaven? It takes changing your consciousness. And, what the ascended masters have given us is the tools to change our consciousness. What we have to supply is the willingness. They can't do that for us. But in order to be willing, we have to see it. We have to see it. And I'm not saying that you all need to see it right now. It took me 30, 40 years to see this. But I'm saying you can all see it, and you don't have to take as long as I took.